Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion. Rock and metal invasion.
Hi, welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm looking at nu metal on vinyl. I'm going to show you some of the nu metal records that I have in my collection on vinyl. So the genre of nu metal is kind of interesting because when nu metal existed, it was called nu metal at the time. A little bit different to hair metal, which is the name that was sort of given to that particular time and sound later. So later on, that sort of period I've talked about, 1983 through to about 1992. It's not an exact science or anything, but roughly that was the big peak time for hair metal. And I guess when we talk about nu metal, we're kind of talking around 98 to around 2001, 2002 as the kind of peak period. But there were bands, of course, before then, and there were bands that came after that as well. In fact, there's still bands these days that like to be called or happy to be put into the nu metal category, just like there's bands that are quite happy to be called hair metal that are coming out now. But again, it's one of those times where it just becomes a sound that becomes popular, and there's a lot of bands, and it's a very, there's a lot of music coming out that fits that sort of sound, and there's an image as well. Very similar, like I say, to hair metal, really. Very similar to grunge as well. Same thing happened with grunge, alternative, when those scenes were popular. And I guess when you're thinking about the popular types of music that fit under the rock and metal categories, you did have your sort of your hair metal, you had your thrash metal that was popular for a while. You had your grunge, you had your alternative rock. But I guess you'd also say that from 1992 through to about really when nu metal started taking off, 98, 99, metal really wasn't popular. It was a bit of a, you had bands like White Zombie and Pantera. They were still doing quite well. But again, that's, some people might call them like a groove metal kind of band. And yeah, definitely there were still metal bands putting out new music. But as far as in the mainstream is concerned, the popularity had definitely decreased. As far as getting radio airplay and being popular and being on the charts, nothing that really fitted into the what would even have the term metal in them was really very popular. I guess a good indication of that, if you look at music magazines from the 80s, it would be bands on the covers would be bands like Metallica, Poison, Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, Motley Crue, and those were the 80s hair metal bands, heavy metal bands, hard rock bands. But then when the 90s came in, you would have in magazines like Metal Hammer would have bands like Nirvana on the cover, Pearl Jam, Offspring. So that was where the alternative and the grunge movement became mainstream. So, it's one of those situations where, things come in cycles. And for a while there, hair metal was very popular. Then you had your grunge and alternative that was very popular. Probably, I guess, really in a way, where hair metal sort of finished, grunge and alternative then took over, and then nu metal came in, and that became the popular sound for, like I say, maybe only 4 or 5 years, at least when it was at its peak of popularity. So what's also, I guess, interesting when I'm talking about perhaps, when I'm talking about showing the nu metal albums that I have on vinyl, is that this is a period 1998 around 2002, but like again, I will be showing things prior to those dates and maybe a little bit after those dates as well. But in that period, vinyl is not popular at all. As I've said before, the death of hair metal also sort of coincided, interestingly enough, with the death of vinyl records, at least popularity-wise. And it's like nothing ever I guess, completely died. There were still hair metal bands and still vinyl records being put out, but nowhere near as popular, and there wasn't as much coming out as what there had used to be. So by the time we get through to 1998, vinyl is, not really a happening thing. No albums are really being put out on vinyl. It's all coming out on CD. Again, there are exceptions. There's a few albums coming out on vinyl, but it's more like a curiosity, more like oh, let's just be a bit different and put this out on vinyl as well. But so it's actually not easy to have a new metal collection on vinyl. It got a little bit easier over recent times because things have started to be reissued. But there's still a lot that's missing that I'd like to have on vinyl that just has not yet been released on vinyl. And I've got quite a big collection of bands, and albums that would fit this genre that are on CD, but not so many on vinyl. Although, as I've been going through for today's show, compiling all the records that I think fit into this genre or this category of music, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of records to show. So this could be a long one. Now, and again, I say genre. I'm always a bit hesitant because I don't really consider hair metal a genre. And then, so when I think about new metal, is that really a genre? Because again, really hard to define new metal because, as you will see, some of these bands that get lumped into the new metal category sound completely different to each other, yet they still be put in new metal. And the same thing happened with hair metal. So you'd say Poison, oh, that's hair metal, but then Slaughter, oh, that's hair metal, but Slaughter and Poison, yeah, there's similarities, but they really sound, I think, quite different. Motley Crue and Bon Jovi, quite different, but still can be put in the hair metal category. The Cinderella and let's think of another one, Dokken. Not really very similar. I mean, there's similarities, but quite a different sound. But again, both those two bands would get put in the hair metal category, and you're going to find the same thing as well with new metal. But there are things like the image, the time it came out. There's other certain things that new metal bands had, like there might be some rapping. They might have a person, a DJ or turntable. But again, you didn't have to have those things. Down tuning, that was a big part of it as well. The first probably new metal band was Korn. So that they were really very influential, and they came out with their debut album, and I'll show it in 1994. So that's well before 1998. I guess I'm sort of saying 98 because I remember around 1998 some of these bands starting to come out with albums that had some Korn influences or sound a little bit like Korn, or were just basically, magazines were also saying this is part of this new metal movement. And it was, like I say, being used at the time. There were certain producers like Ross Robinson who was associated with this type of music quite a lot. So if he was producing it, good chance, because he was the initial producer for Korn, good chance it'll be a new metal record. Now he evolved, he moved on to other things, but other different types of music. And he even did other types of music, while he was sort of associated with new metal. But he was sort of given the tag of the new metal producer there for a while. Because he did, as you'll see, produce some big popular bands that we do put into that new metal category. Anyway, enough talk. Let's get into it. I'm just going to basically just show some records, that I think a lot of people would probably put in the new metal category. Now, it's not an exact science. I know there's some people who are going to go, that's not new metal. Okay, that's cool. It's not, but it's in that time period, and again, they may be a band that toured with new metal bands. There may be a band, especially that was on the Ozfest concert around, that the Ozfest. Obviously, Ozzy's not new metal, but Ozzy would often headline. But then all the other bands were like a lot of new metal bands, and so yeah, a lot of these bands you would have, if you'd gone to the Ozfest around sort of 98 through to 2002 sort of thing, when the Ozfest was really popular, you would have seen a lot of these bands. I mean, yeah, there were still other bands that weren't new metal on these concerts as well, Ozzy being a good example, but yeah, there were a lot of new metal bands, and I'm sure this first one was one of them. So this is Edema. So this is actually the only thing that I know of that is on vinyl, but I could be wrong. Now, this is actually not even a full album, so this is like a EP. It's got some remixes. It's got Immortal, which is like a exclusive to this particular release. Shattered, Nutshell. It's got some, yeah, and then side two's got some remixes. I guess it's got a total of 7 songs, but it's a bit of a sort of a collection of remixes and extra tracks. But the opening track, Immortal, is exclusive to this, and it's a really good song. I like that one. Amen, talking about Ross Robinson. So he produced this album by Amen. Again, to my knowledge, the only album that's on vinyl. This was fronted by Casey Chaos, who sadly passed away, I think at the end of last year. Did a little tribute to him on my channel. Love this band. I love the follow-up album as well. We've Come For Your Parents. Unfortunately, there's no vinyl release for that. I do have some 7-inch singles, but tracks from that follow-up album, but no album. No full-length album on vinyl, but this one, yeah, Music on Vinyl have released it. Next one I'm counting as a new metal band, but it's actually a New Zealand band, so you may not be familiar with them. This is a band called Blind Spot. Now, this is not an easy one to get on vinyl. It wasn't put out on vinyl, I don't think, at the time, but then, it was reissued on vinyl later on. But they were really big here in New Zealand. And again, in that sort of peak sort of time around 2000s, Blind Spot very popular. If you sort of, I guess I would compare them, I guess, to Linkin Park, I guess, because they do have a DJ, but they also have sort of Deftones influences in there as well. But yeah, anyway, that was Blind Spot. Now this one's an interesting one. This is Booyah Tribe, Angry Samoans. I'm going to put this one in the new metal category. I don't know if they ever really were put in that category, but they've got that sort of rap or hip hop influence into metal was a very popular part of the new metal scene. So Booyah Tribe, initially just like a hip hop act, but on this album they're cranking out the guitars, and I really love this one. It's called Angry Samoans. I don't have any other Booyah Tribe album, and I think this is one of the only. Well, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling the only one where they really, they get heavy on it. The rest might be a lot more hip hop oriented, but this one's like, I think it's new metal, and it's quite early too. So this is like 1997. So yeah, really good. Another Ross Robinson production. This is Cold, and their debut album. This is really good. Again, I would say though, it's associated with the new metal scene more because of the producer. The sound itself is more alternative metal, I suppose, but really good. It's one of my favorite bands that came out during this time. And also, yeah, Ross Robinson Productions at this time, he was just on fire. The stuff, he was putting out, obviously Korn had been big, but he produced some other albums. And I really liked his production style. It's just very atmospheric and just very, very good. And so this has actually only just recently been reissued on vinyl. I do have some 7-inch singles. That was for a while there the only time you could hear these songs on vinyl, but now I've got the album. So like I said, recently reissued on vinyl. Again, I think that's Music on Vinyl. And then their album after that, 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage. I think I might like this one even more. Sorry about the glare on the light with the light there, but yeah, fantastic. This is great. Just got wicked. Now that is kind of getting a little bit new metal, but it's a kick-ass song. I really like that one. From start to finish, this is a great album. Now, this actually isn't produced by Ross Robinson, Adam Casper. I think he worked with Soundgarden, but it's no one. This actually went gold, I think. This was actually a fairly successful album, probably their most successful album. And a lot of these bands did have, some success. Like I say, with this new metal scene, it became popular and it actually had mainstream popularity and success. Next one, talking about mainstream and being successful, Crazy Town and the Gift of Game, and this is their debut album. Initially, when this album came out, I remember at the time picking it up and thinking, "Oh yeah, it's it is what it is," but it's not going to be very successful, is it? And it didn't seem. I think I picked it up in like a bargain bin or something like that. So it hadn't been successful, and then all of a sudden, I think it's like their fourth or fifth single, Butterfly, just you know is a massive hit for them, and it's one of the few times where I've seen a band. Yeah, literally, I did. I picked this up in like the bargain bin, and then all of a sudden it's out of the bargain bin and it's on the it's behind the counter and being there's posters up about the album and it's in the top 10 album chart, so it was really a big turnaround. But I do really like the song Butterfly. I think it's really a good song. Of course they're sampling a Red Hot Chili Peppers song on that particular song, but yeah, Toxic as well, very sort of, if you like that Linkin Park kind of rap metal kind of sound, but you've got the DJ. There's some songs on here I like. Bad Boy, or sorry, B Boy 2000. That's not too bad. But it is a bit. There's a lot of stuff I'm not that fussed about. Sadly, Shifty Shell Shock passed away quite recently as well. So it's always a bit of a downer when you're doing these retrospective things. You're talking about these albums that have come out that you loved, and yeah, sadly some of the people have passed away. But yeah, Shifty and way too young to have passed on. But he did have his issues with substance abuse. And I don't think he's the only one of this group here who's passed on as well. I think a couple of the other guys are no longer around also. Anyway, that's Crazy Town. Now they did have a follow-up album, but that has not been released. Well, I think even more than one follow-up album, but the one that they released after that, I've got on CD. It's not available on vinyl. That wasn't too bad either. I mean, I don't mind them, but they're just a bit hit and miss. They're not, you know, to say they're new metal. The metal was, if you're a traditional metal fan, you say that is not metal, But that's the whole thing with new metal, right? It's like, well, it's not really metal, but it's got heavy guitar. So, again, just like hair metal, if I say new metal, I think you know what I'm talking about. So these guys probably don't like being put in the new metal category, but again, they came out around the same time as Korn. Again, they got that Ross Robinson link, and yeah, there was definitely some new metal influences, but they probably now would be credited for a lot of that sort of the shoegaze scene that's become popular or did become popular. But anyway, Deftones, White Pony. This is probably their best album. They've got Maynard from Tool on vocals for the song Passenger, which is such a great song. But I loved this album when it came out, and yeah, still love playing it. I mean, just yeah, start to finish. Change in the House of Flies. That was one of the singles, but that's a great song. Knife Party, very good. Yeah, it's their first two albums. So the two albums before this, that's available. They're available on vinyl, but if you don't have them, and I like them, but I just don't have everything. But I've got them on CD. But this is the only Deftones I've got on vinyl. But yes, like I say, my favorite album. And yeah, the first two are good, but this one I think is their best. I've not so much into Deftones. After this album, they start to lose me a little bit. All right, next band I want to talk about. I've got everything from these guys now. For whatever reason, these guys get a bit of a hard time, and I don't really get it because, I mean, what? Because they're popular? Anyway, Disturbed, and this is The Lost Children. So this is like songs that didn't make the album, and they're songs that don't make an album are really good songs. They have a lot of good leftover songs. And yes, some of them do sound a lot the same. Sometimes it is. I will agree with Disturbed. You're like, haven't I just heard that song? But I don't know. For me, I just like what they do. I like it, and yeah, and yeah. So they've got like quite a lot of songs here as well. Again, they're coming out in the CD age also, so they're putting out usually quite a lot of songs on each album. And even this, the Lost Children, it's a double vinyl, and it's got like eight. It's got yeah. 16 songs on it by the looks of it. So yeah, it's quite a number of songs on that one. Yeah, so I'll just show them all immortalized. I've got every Disturbed album, even got the Live at Red Rocks. It's a double album as well, double vinyl. Divisive. Yeah, so that's their most recent album. That was good. That was very good. I didn't actually like the one before this, Evolution. I didn't like that one so much, but I may not even actually have that one now I think about it on vinyl. But yeah, Divisive was really going back, I think, to their old sound, and that's the sound I prefer. But it was a really solid album, this one. And then the box set, which is, what is it? How many albums is on this? One, two, three, four, five. So their first five albums. So that's an easy way to, if you wanted to, you know, increase your Disturbed collection, you could just get the box set. All right, now I just have to reach over here and grab the next pile. So yeah, like I said, there's quite a bit. All right, next one. Dope and Group Therapy. Now, some of these, like I say, didn't come out at the time. They came out later on. So this is a reissued Record Store Day exclusive. I don't know, from a couple of years ago, I think. I do like this one. I think this is one of their better albums. So I was actually really pleased when I saw that it was being reissued on vinyl or being issued on vinyl. Yeah. And the songs for me to check out, well, the songs I think are really good on here. I've always really enjoyed Bring It On. And Today's the Day. There's quite a few. Now's the Time. Good band. This is like probably, I don't know, maybe their third album. Yeah. I think the first two are only available on CD. Could be wrong, but I think so. That was their third album. And then this one here is their fourth album. This is American Apathy. This one's just as good as Group Therapy, I think, maybe even a little bit better. I do like the song. Where is it? What's it called? Yeah, Revolution. That's such a good song. I love that one. But yeah, so this is supposedly limited edition, 506 of 1,000. This came out a while ago on vinyl, 2013. It says the vinyl countdown. I'm not sure how official this is. Anyway, yeah, so this is not when the album came out, but this is when it was issued on vinyl. And it's got here at the back, American Nu Metal Band. So they've been called Nu Metal. Dope present their fourth studio album, American Apathy. Yeah, which is a bit weird, isn't it? It's like you're issuing your album on vinyl, and you've got like a sort of a, I don't know, information about it on the back cover. Like, shouldn't that be like on a sticker or something like that, rather than actually just? Yeah, it's what makes me wonder about this. If this is official. Anyway, 180-gram vinyl, double vinyl. And I didn't think it sounded that good. Like, I feel like the CD sounds better. That's again why I think I'm not sure about how official that is. But anyway, next one. Yeah, so this is a band called Downset. If you, in case you're wondering, yes, I'm doing it from A to Z. I'm only at D, so yeah, get comfortable. All right, Downset. This is the debut album. Again, this is music on vinyl. They're really good for reissuing or issuing albums on vinyl. They do a great job as well. If you like Rage Against the Machine, you probably know about these guys. Or if you don't know about these guys and you like Rage Against the Machine, you should check them out. I think the vocalist was at one time in line to potentially become the new singer for Rage Against the Machine. You know, when Zach left, and then they decided to go with Chris Cornell and sort of be a completely different band, well, have a different sound. But yes, it's rap, metal, hardcore influence. There definitely some hardcore influences, and this is surprisingly, this was released on a major label. This is Mercury in 1994. And then they came out with this one in 1996, Do We Speak a Dead Language, which is probably even better. And yeah, Empower, that's a good song. Eyes Shut Tight. Yeah, some nice riffs on it as well. The guitar playing's nothing like, you get from Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, but it's solid, some nice riffs. Yeah. So yeah, this is good. Some people might not even consider it new metal, kind of more hardcore rap, rock type thing. But again, it's similar to Rage Against the Machine. And again, you might say, well, Rage Against the Machine aren't really new metal. And I'd probably say, yeah, you're probably right, because they came out first album came out in 92 or 93, something like that. But very influential, I think, on the new metal scene. Drowning Pool, I don't actually they really necessarily have a new metal sound, but again, they're coming out around about that time, and this was a big album. This one, well, at the time, Bodies was, of course, their big hit. Of course, they did also have some problem because it was a popular song, but then when 9/11 happened, they suddenly found that they weren't getting much airplay with that one anymore. This is probably the one that's been their most successful album, and yeah, it's pretty good, pretty good. All right, now again with sort of more hardcore, but there's new metal influences, or they could get put in the new metal category. They probably wouldn't like it if they were, but anyway, uh, this is Furia 5. So I think they've got another album before this as well, but At War with the World. These guys, yeah, they're not mucking around. Come and get it. Do or Die. That's a great song, but it is kind of it's hardcore, but down-tuned guitars, and there's some sort of the vocal styles at times, rap type style. So, but again, that sometimes fits in with the hardcore scene as well. So again, talking about sort of that Rage Against the Machine, like someone like Zach, the vocalist for Rage Against the Machine, the way he would um sing over the songs. That there's some influence, or it sounds a little bit like that, but a little bit more hardcore. And yeah, I like these guys. And as like I say, Do or Die. I remember seeing the music video for that one, thinking, oh wow, this is good. But Come and Get It, that's also a really good one. Good. A lot of this music for me is good gym music. So if I want to just go down to the gym, lift some weights, this is my go-to kind of music. Well, it was at least at the time. Probably still is sometimes. This is a band I love, Head PE, and not an easy one to get on vinyl, but believe it or not, it did get released on vinyl. People may not know this. This is, I think, Japanese release. Had to pick it up when I saw it was available on vinyl. This is Broke. For me, the best song was Waiting to Die, but also Killing Time and Feel Good, which features Surge from System of a Down and Morgan from the band Kitty. But yeah, this one did pretty well for them. I think this is their second album. They've been around for a little while, and I think they're on a major label, they're on Jive, and I think the first one came out around '97. So they're quite early to the party, to the new metal party, and this one, yeah, it's a lot more, like I say, new metal, a lot more guitars on this one than what has been recently. But they again probably not a band that even wants the new metal to tag. They're like punk rock metal, punk metal, whatever. I think that's kind of how they like to see themselves, with hip hop influences as well. So it is what it is. Like I'm saying, I'm not necessarily saying that they are a new metal band, but I think sometimes a lot of these bands, they get put in that category. Another one, and a lot of these bands too, Roadrunner. So Roadrunner around 98 to 2002, they were like totally in they were into this new metal thing. They were totally into it, and they were releasing a lot of the bands that we now put in there, or that were talked about as being new metal. So this is another one. This is El Nino Revolution. So this is just currently a fairly new reissue on vinyl, or issue on vinyl, was never put out. So it's the vinyl debut, it says, for this 2001 new metal classic, and it totally is. Yeah, it totally is. God Save Us, If You Still Hate Me. If You Still Hate Me, I think it's a great song. But yeah, start to finish, it's really good. I loved this when it came out. Again, great music for doing workouts too. Yeah, that's what I would do. I'd find I'd do a great set listening to a bit of El Nino. So yeah, that one. And then I think although this one's a little bit more commercial, I do really like this one as well. It's actually produced by Bob Marlett. Who's like, he's been around since the 80s. He's producer and performed on like a lot of AOR stuff that I've got in my collection from the 80s. But yeah, he's production on this one and songwriter. He worked with another band as well that came out around this time called Saliva. But yes, songwriter slash producer, I guess. So he's helping to sort of, and I think his influence gives this album a little bit more polish, a little bit more commercial. Obviously, that first album had been quite successful for them, so there's a bit of pressure to follow it up with some, another hit. This is good. It's got great songs on it. Like, How Can I Live was one of the singles, but I think Unframed and This Time's For Real are really good. And I also really like When It Cuts. It's a really good song. So yeah, please take this one, get put out on vinyl. And then their next album also has just been, again, all these three that I'm showing have only fairly recently been issued on vinyl for the first time. Music on Vinyl done it. So they just sort of put one out after the other. This one not quite as good. but still good. But yeah, Corazon of Mine would be my go-to song here. Not so much, not so many songs that I sort of my go-to songs here, but the first two are great albums. This one's good. There's other albums as well that they've put out, but I don't think they're available on vinyl yet. And I've got those on CD and really enjoy those. Now, this one definitely gets put in the new metal category. Korn, talked about them already, so highly influential band. And when this came out, I was like, who are these guys? I've never heard a sound like this before. And I was, all in on it. I thought it was great. So Blind, Bull Tongue, Clown, it's a very, very good. Especially the first, 7 or 8 songs on this, I think are just great, fantastic stuff. So yeah, like I say, it was a bit of a new sound at the time, and I think at the time I was like, the grunge stuff is okay, but and the hair metal stuff wasn't coming out anymore. So, but this was like, this is something I could really get into. So yeah, love this one. I also really enjoy Life is Peachy. I don't think it's one of those albums I don't think the band likes that much, but I think it's really good. Good God, that is a great song. I like it so much. I even got a remix uh, EP of it, and the remixes are great as well. But yeah, some really just interesting creative stuff. Probably it's a bit more polished, but also very good. Follow the leader. Now, for me, with Korn, kind of stop after this album, but I think this is a great album. It's really good. When I say I stop, I not so much into the album that came in after this one, but I did quite like Take a Look in the Mirror. So Untouchables and Issues, I wasn't into that much, but I did enjoy Take a Look in the Mirror. And that's the So the albums, that's the last Korn album I've got on vinyl.